Now, as the former team principal of Haas F1, our next guest played a role in some of motorsport's most dramatic moments.
But it was Guenther Steiner's no-nonsense attitude on Netflix's hit series Drive to Survive that made him an international star. Here's an example of that unfiltered attitude that won him a legion of fans.
Where were you when you had the phone call when it all ended?
In a grocery store, in the vegetable section, you know. Between a tomato and a salad, I had Gene on the phone. He didn't ask me, how do you feel getting sacked, you know? It's like, how did you feel?
How did you feel about it?
I couldn't give a
Guenther, you're very, very welcome to the show. Now, of course, you're very well known for your antics and Drive to Survive. We'll return to that in a short while. But, of course, you're an icon in the world of Formula One. How did your career in motorsport actually start in the first place?
In the first place, my first actual job was as a mechanic in rallying, in a world rally team when I was 21 years old. I just finished my national service and I moved from northern Italy to Belgium to do that. But my passion for motorsport started a long time before. Already as a kid, I always loved racing cars, but I actually never thought I will. I think at that time I didn't even know it was possible to make a living out of the sport. But no, the first job was at 21 in world rallying.
Okay. Well, that 21-year-old, did you have any notion that you might go on to be a team principal or to set up a brand new Formula One team?
No, I mean, you know, as I said, for me, was getting the first job was a little bit. I was surprised that I got the job because I had no experience in motorsport. So for me, it was just like I take one day by day, month by month, year by year, and then it just my career just developed. It was like I kept on going and. Things came along, and then at some stage, it was about 15 years ago now, I started to think it would be actually a pretty cool thing to set up a Formula One team in the US.
And that was quite the journey, really, wasn't it, setting up that? What are your highlights from that whole time?
I would say the highlights were when we debuted the team in Australia, Melbourne in 2016. It's because a lot of people put a lot of effort in, and I always say I didn't do it, the team did it, you know, because it's like you need a lot of people to set up a Formula One team, and a lot of people which put a lot of passion, a lot of work into it, you know, and we got it together. And when you start an F1 team and you go to the grid, it's like something cool. But the strange thing there is, when you do it, you don't realize, because you're so much in the day-to-day work. And then maybe a few years later, you think about, wow, did we really do this? And that's why I say that's the highlight of my career. Setting an F1 team up from scratch, having the idea, finding the investor, and putting a team together to make it happen.
How many people are actually involved in that team? Because I suppose when we see it on TV, or even if you see it live, the amount of mechanics, of behind-the-scenes people and everything, it's a huge operation.
Yeah, F1 teams are big operations, and there are different teams. The big teams, they've got about 800 people, you know, between factory and the racetrack. On the racetrack, it's limited by the regulation. You can bring only 60 people operational, basically people which work on the car, engineer and mechanics, and all the teams are the same there. They've got 60 people, but back in the factory, like Haas F1 was the smallest team, or is still the smallest team. We had about, I would say, an average of 200, 250 people, not more, but the big teams, they are 700-800 people, enterprises.
Okay. Now, it's always been described to me, Formula One, as, you know, one of the most watched sports around the world, also one of the most glamorous sports around the world. And then you get something like Drive to Survive coming on the scene, which just catapults it up to a different level altogether. It also has raised your profile. And how are you dealing with this level of fame?
I didn't change. I just deal like before. The only thing that changed for me is that I get stopped a little bit more, because before I didn't get stopped at all, to be honest. I get stopped and people ask for a selfie or just have a talk, which I just deal with it. I didn't change. There's no point to change. You know, I always say there is worse things than this happened in your life.
Yeah.
Is it true that you've never actually watched an episode of it, of yourself on it even?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm not a fan of watching myself to start off with, and when the series came out, there was a lot of opinions about how I behave in the series and what I do. So I said I better don't watch it. So at least I don't have to debate it if somebody starts to speak with me about. My answer was always I don't know what you're talking about because I haven't seen it.
That's a really good plan, actually. Really good plan.
It works. And one of the things that people like about you is that you are, as you said, yourself. You're honest. You swear a lot, and thank you for not swearing this morning because, you know, we may have little ears and little eyes around the TV. But how do you feel about that? The people, that the swearing Guenther has become a massive, massive success. And an icon.
It has become, and normally, you know, on interviews and things like this, I don't swear. And but when I go racing and when I get emotional, you know, when I'm competing with the team, I just get. I think I get to be another human being. You know, I'm completely different. I'm, you know, I can be. A lot of people say I've got to switch. You know, because I know on TV and on interviews and radio, you cannot swear, you know. So it's a switch, but I don't have to think about it. It's automatic. There is one Guenther and the other Guenther. One which is when he's competing and one when he's the guy for the media.
Yeah. When you're the competing Guenther now, put that cap on for us now. I mean, what do you make of the season so far this year?
Very interesting, very exciting, I think. You know, you never really know, even if the McLaren is the strongest car or the strongest team in the moment, but you never really know who is going to win. It's not a dominance, you know, so very interesting. Every race weekend brings up some surprises. So I find it very exciting for the fans, you know. There is no boredom in here.
Okay. Formula One, like you were part, and it was your idea to have an American Formula One team. Here in Ireland, we are very thankful because a man called Eddie Jordan came along and he set up a team as well. We've sadly lost him. So did you have any experiences with Eddie? Would you have thoughts on his legacy in Formula One?
Yeah, absolutely. Eddie was a guy, and I got to know him more in the last years since he, or not retired, but since he sold the team. I knew him before as well, but just from saying hello. But every time he came to F1 the last 3-4 years, when I ran into him, we had a chat, and I liked Eddie a lot because he was a character. He gave color to F1. You know, he had those very colorful shirts normally, you know. So we always spoke, and I think I saw him last in Silverstone at a concert of an artist. You know, we were there on backstage together. So, but I had a podcast with him afterwards, and he always said we two should have been in Formula One together at the same time. We would have had a lot of fun.
Oh my God! Could you just imagine that? That would be a documentary we'd all want to watch.
Unfortunately, Eddie's not with us anymore, but you know, so. But
yeah.
he was a very great guy, and he did a lot for Formula One.
Yeah. You've jumped into many different strands of your career since. Of course, you left the team there, but you've commentary, you're doing tours, etc. What do you feel about the change of pace? Is it different? Is it more relaxed, or just a different kind of pressure?
It's a different kind of pressure, completely different. And what I feel, I quite like it because when I left the team last year and when it was announced, my plan was actually to do a little bit less. But as soon as it was announced, people asked me, Guenther, you want to do this? You want to go TV? You want to do speaking events and things like this? And I said, guys, just give me a few weeks to find out what I actually want to do. And by the way, I still don't know what I want to do in the future. But I started to do TV, and I quite enjoyed it. It's good fun because the important thing for me is because I was so long in this sport. You know, it's the people you are together with. And, you know, you go, last year I went to half the races, to 12 of them, and you see the people, and that is what I like, you know, but I'm there to do a job. I'm not just there to hang out and be a nuisance to everybody, you know. I'm doing a job, you know, and it gives me something also to focus on. Because if you're just hanging out, it gets boring pretty quick. So I quite like it in the moment to do what I'm doing.
Okay. Well, you've also become an author. And so the first book was Survive to Drive. The latest book is, well, aptly named Unfiltered. And you're touring with it, and you're going to be in Dublin this weekend.
Yes, going to be in Dublin on Sunday. So, really looking forward to it. I was in Dublin, I think, 3 years ago last time, because we had a sponsor event there. And I always like to come back there. Unfortunately, I haven't got a lot of time to spend there. That's the only unfortunate thing.
Indeed, and I have to say it'll be. I know there's tickets still available for that.
I know people who cancelled events as soon as they heard Guenther was on.
I know. To be honest, I'd say it would be hilarious, because of course you're going to be here Sunday. What can fans expect from you?
Yeah, it's a little bit telling my life, how I got into motorsport, what I did, and then how I set up a Haas F1 team and how it ended, it's 1.5 hours, and then in the end we have also Q&A for the people watching it. So normally it's quite an interesting event. People like it. We did quite a lot of them. The ghostwriter is hosting it. The ghostwriter of my books is hosting it, James Hogg, and it's good fun. We have a good banter between us, and which is also good for the public there.
All right. Will it be swearing or non-swearing Guenther on the stage?
A little bit is sometimes in there when I get a little bit excited, when I do have a little bit of fun,
Oh, Guenther, listen, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Thank you very much for having me, guys, and looking forward to come to Dublin.
Okay, we'll have a safe flight.